NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series Tour for 2024. And today's race day at these NHRA Carolina Nationals will take place at the expansive zmaxdragway in Concord, North Carolina. But the questions that remain about this race day may be able to be answered by what happened just 1 week ago when we were in Reading, Pennsylvania. It's the Carolina Nationals today, but back at PA, it was wild. We knew the pressure was set to rise at the start of the NHRA countdown to the championship at Maple Grove Raceway last week. But did we truly understand how it would show up? Couple red. 001 red light start. That is a shocking turn of events. It instantly takes him out of competition.
We'll just have to pick up the pieces and, move to Charlotte next week, which it couldn't be soon enough.
Hector's had a great motorcycle, but he's had a penchant for the red light. Whoa, it's Gianna this time. Gianna Evaristo, 003 red, and I do believe she saw it and pulled the clutch in right away.
Doug smokes the tires! Oh! Christmas, Dan Mercier is going around number 2, and the points leader is out. A 382 and only 281 miles an hour. It was an apple that was right for the picking, but hard red lit. A red light start for Rod Capps, and Bob Tasca just got a gift. His car smoked the tires. Capps left 2 thousandths early.
I left on amber. I don't know what to say. Crazy.
And it didn't debate after the first round. It kept stacking up, and for some, this was perfect. He could be very tough moving forward. And for others, the squeeze ended their day with discouraging abruptness. Gage Herrera, Hector Rada Jr., and he red lights himself out of competition by 2 thousandths of a second. Hector Rada Jr., the Gentrex Fuel, will meet up with Richard Gatson in the final round. And this was led up to the building until Tasca smokes the tires. 393 and 328. It will be a John Force Racing final for the first time in a long time, as Austin Brock and Jack Beckman will fight for it. In the end, there were 4. Squeezed on a winner's stage, having conquered the pressure, the competition, and perhaps the doubts about their championship ability. An 11 reaction time for Richard Gatson, but look at Arada's motorcycle, which has simply flown this weekend. At the finish line stripe, it is Aaron Stanfield. Man, this guy is absolutely crushing him this year. It's a dandy, and it's going to be Austin Brock, 389 and 332 miles an hour. They leave Antron's out first, Landon's trying to catch him, and it's going to be Antron Brown. Now,
25 feet in length, will generate over 11,000 horsepower. It is designed specifically to compete on a 1,000-foot racetrack in it. Straight line. The downforce is provided by a front wing that will generate 2,500 pounds of downforce. Brown be able to do what he has done so many times in this countdown, which is to win 16 races over the course of his career. To the most in Top Fuel history. 2+
Here, and our main thing is we got to stay hungry, stay humble. It's going to be a tough day today. We got Steve Torrance here first round, so the track's going to be hot and slick, and it's going to be one of those crab rolls, and we got to give it all we got to see what we can make happen.
And it will take everything that this team has, because Brittany Forrest has once again shown why her team can contend and will contend today.
3 out of 4 times down the racetrack, this car has been armed up. It's been very quick, very consistent, and a good rebound from what they've been doing over the past few races.
The #1 qualifying position she gained in qualifying session 2 on Friday night was a thing of beauty. The only top fuel car to run down this drag strip in less than 3.7 seconds.
This is one of the strengths of this team. They are able to recognize the cooler conditions. They have the power to correspond with the amount of grip on this surface.
The odds entering in this race for the Play NHRA. Brittany Forrest came into Charlotte needing a bounce-back weekend, and they have bounced back in a great way. #1 qualifier, solid throughout qualifying. How do you feel about this team's chances as you head in eliminations here today?
I feel really good just based off our qualifying. You know, we picked up a ton of points just in qualifying. We ended up #1 with that 69, but our run last night was actually really killer. We ran a 77 in the heat, really to get us set up for today. I'm really proud of this HendrickCars.com team, and I'm looking forward to see what we can do. It's been a long time since we've been in that winner's circle, and there'd be no better place to do it than here at ZMAX Dragway.
And let's get a look at our top fuel ladder brought to us by Lucas Oil for round #1. Brittany Forrest will race Ida Zetterstrom for the first time. Jasmine Salinas and Clay Milliken have not faced off at all this season, nor have Sean Reed and Billy Torrance. It is a very interesting setup of matchups here.
Well, if you look at this entire ladder, 7 of 8, even 8 of 8 can go either way.
And it's time to fire the first pair of top fuel dragsters in this second race to the NHRA countdown to the championship season. It will be Jasmine Salinas and Clay Milliken. Milliken, of course, the Rick Ware Racing team based out of Mooresville, North Carolina, just down the road, carrying the mighty Firebreaker and Parts Plus colors as we look at the Summit onboard camera to Jim Overhopper, the crew chief of this machine. Milliken will be racing Jasmine Salinas this morning. Jasmine Salinas, who, unfortunately, as we know, failed to make the countdown to the championship, but is still a very viable threat here. We caught up with Clay Milliken. We, invaded his privacy right in the cockpit of his car just moments ago.
2 questions, Clay. Approaching this first round, not having lane choice a concern, and what's it going to take for you guys to advance?
I don't think lane choice is a big deal. I mean, both lanes are super hot. I think this is going to be a driver kind of day. It may take one or the other, or sometimes both. It's going to be a challenge, no doubt about it.
Well, all the best. Thanks for talking with us.
Thank you, guys.
And for Milliken, we'll see how this plays out on a racetrack that is nearing 120 degrees already in this first round. An air temperature of just about 85 out here on a warm Sunday. The teams now have made their adjustments. It's in the hands of the drivers. Will they go clean or will they be pedaling? We'll find out now. A clean start. Jasmine Salinas is hanging right in there, and it will be a whole shot victory for Clay Milliken. 381 beats a 379. They made a clean run, but they were more conservative in the tune-up. His experience has shown through.
This is what drivers have to factor into their opponent, their matchup. A driver like Clay Milliken, his average is right about where he left the starting line. But on average, he has a clear advantage in terms of just being a quicker driver off the starting line. That is something that he has to try to take advantage of when you race a Jasmine Salinas and you size her up, how that car performed in qualifying, with the exception of the last run that they made where they had a throttle cable that didn't function properly. Every time that car went down the track, it was a very good run, but for Clay Milliken, great execution.
It is once again a countdown race where this Parts Plus Mighty Fire retardant car makes its way, Mighty Fire Breaker car makes its way into the second round. Now the next pair on the racetrack will be Tony Schumacher on one side of the drag strip and Doug Foley on the other. The Protex Alloy Employer Services car, along with United Garage Door and other sponsors for Doug Foley, a car that has lived in the high 370s. It hasn't been the quickest car, but it has made the trip down the racetrack without a bunch of smoke or trouble. For Tony Schumacher, the Michael Walter Brewing Company, as well as Leatherwood Distillery.
And for Schumacher, as good as they qualify, they're not going to be able to target that impressive 371. The track surface is hotter, the traction is less than what it was, that rubber is now gooey, and that promotes that rear tire slipping, so they have to caution, and I'm sure they're going to slow the car down. The opportunity for Doug Foley is he has to be able to get off the starting line right alongside of Tony Schumacher and do exactly what he did in qualifying.
The flash of the tree, they lead within 3 thousandths of each other. Doug Foley's going to go down there, and it is going to be Doug Foley. That is a massive, massive move there for Doug Foley, and a very troubling and quick end for Tony Schumacher. 378 beats a 383.
That's exactly how you approach a round like this. You're racing a multi-time champion with Tony Schumacher. You know they outperformed you in qualifying. For Doug Foley, he stayed in his lane. He was very solid off the starting line. That is the best you can do. Then you rely on the team, the tuner that gave you a better car than your opponent. It looked like Schumacher was in the race till about the 8th mile. You can see his car skiing around a little bit, that raw fuel coming out, and that allowed Doug Foley to advance.
There are plenty of spoiler cars at Top Fuel that are looking to play whack-a-mole with those drivers in the countdown, and Doug Foley just landed the first blow for those spoilers. When we come back, Top Fuel continues. The Toyota Cam and the pitch shows Antron Brown's team preparing.
Get ready to race down the track with Mission Foods.
It's sponsored by Mission Foods. Now that's too fast, too tasty. And by Camping World, America's recreation dealer. And we are back here just outside of Charlotte, North Carolina. In Concord at ZMAX Dragway for the Carolina Nationals, Clay Milligan and Doug Foley, 2 racers that did not qualify heat.
You know, Brian talked with Billy this morning about his opportunity for today to get out of the first round. He said, right now, we need the heat. We need every kind of extra added incentive to give us an edge. He said, right now, the heat will let to give us a level playing field because we don't know where we're at. We've been struggling with this car, trying to find consistency, which is something that has been an issue all year long. I just need to go up there and do my job.
As we just saw now, these first 2 pairs, that driver job is highly important, as is the job of the crew chief, Rob Wendland, stepping away from the car. Wendland ran this car to a 370 in the cool temperatures of Friday night. What does he have now? He has tire smoke, and Reed is going to pedal the car, and Billy Torrance with a misfiring cylinder, maybe multiples, goes 388 and 302 for a win.
Oh, for Sean Reed, you know, this is just one of those things that catches you by surprise. A good lead for Sean Reed. He was amped up as a driver, very well prepared. But it was just an instant excessive wheel speed on the right side of your screen. Early in the run, tried to get after it a little bit, but not having as big of problems early in the run. It looked like Billy Torrance's car lost traction at the 8th mile, but at that point, it was Sean Reed pretty much out of the race.
Amanda Biersiks with a giant killer, Doug Foley.
Doug Foley yelling at his team he'll be over right away. He is the vehicle driver, so he has to go to get ready for this turnaround. But Doug, you walked over to this interview and you said, man, we needed that. Seeing win lights as a small team, what does it do for this operation?
It changes everything. It really does. You know, people don't realize how hard we work, you know, the hours and everything. We don't have the 10 guys full-time that show up to the shop. These guys do it blood, sweat, and tears. That's the way we do it. And, you know, for us, for Protex, United Garage Door, Alloy, all of the sponsors, Redline, everybody who supports us, they don't realize how much their investment in this team changes my life.
And he is going to try to change somebody else's life for the negative in round 2 as he runs back to jump in the tow vehicle. And here we go. Humongous implications here. The Mahindra Tractors top fueler of Tony Stewart, and of course the Mac Tools top fueler of Doug Coletta, a car that was just so good during the regular season and has stubbed its toe here lately. We go back just 1 year ago. Doug won Maple Grove, then came here and won, but man, he's got a tough act to follow.
Yeah, he had a full head of steam coming into this countdown just a year ago. It was really the switch from the enclosed cockpit, that closure on the canopy. They rolled out a second car, and it just seemed to perform so much better for Doug Coletta.
And so we find these 2 cars in really different situations. You know, for Tony Stewart's team, the more that the service of the drag strip was like the service of a skating rink benefited them earlier in the season, Doug's car likes those cool conditions.
Well, traction is the name of the game, and for Doug Coletta, and I recognize that in some of his pre-race interviews, that he's acknowledging, he's admitting the fact that they're not as good when there is temperature on the racetrack, and that's really what has beat them the last couple of races. That's what caused the DNQ at the biggest race of the year, the U.S. Nationals. So it's important for him to have a good car that's set up properly. But what's going to be interesting about this matchup is all the years of experience that these 2 drivers have in sprint cars on dirt may come in handy in the event one of these cars break traction.
Doug Coletta's losing cylinders, and Stewart's car was off, and it shut itself off far earlier. A 389.4 and 306 for Doug Coletta. That was less a victory and more an escape. Well, they outlasted Tony Stewart. We'll get another look at this. And this is one of the things that I was talking about with Tony Stewart. And he makes it appear so seamless. But this is great throttle control. You can see on the top side of the screen, he falls behind early in the race. However, he's hoping that Colette has some problems. But take a look at Tony Stewart. That puff of smoke that come off his tires is that car losing traction. But he gets off the throttle. And there it is right there. It's lost traction. You can see those butterflies, those injector blades, they close, and not a lot of drivers can get that car to recover. You're talking about trying to harness over 11,000 horsepower, and that just doesn't happen overnight. It's all the disciplines of experience that Tony Stewart has brought into this Top Fuel machine that allows him to do that.
So for Doug Coletta, it was a season-saving round victory to some degree. The HendrickCars.com top fueler of Brittany Force. Ida Zetterstrom also wearing red, white, and blue. You can see a very short burnout there, likely instructed by the crew chief, John Schaefer, to keep that short because of the increased track temperature. It's Dodge, Engelbrock, and BP Racing fuels for Ida, who is now the lone entry left for the Joe Maynard race team.
Yeah, and I think the abbreviated burnout when the temperature is nearing 85 degrees, it's always a good move from the driver because you do want to build temperature in the engine. You don't want cylinders to misfire and get drowned out early in a run. However, you do want to keep some of that heat and temperature out of that rear Goodyear slick.
These two have no history together. They've never actually met up side by side. Of course, it is Ida's 4th career Top Fuel race. As for Brittany Force, the #1 qualifier here is 15-0 in the first round at this event. Sometimes these numbers are great, and if you're a sports fan from a city like Boston, you see a statistic like that and think, when is the other shoe going to drop? And Ida Zetterstrom is planning to be that other shoe.
Brittany smokes the tires. Ida smokes the tires. Brittany Force just claws her way back into the win there. What an effort. 478.9 at 203. A gutsy driving performance from experience for Brittany Force. A lot of credit where it's due there.
That's all it is right there. That is experience in the seat. That is something that Brittany Force has developed. She has a couple of championships. She's been in these situations before. And we'll get another look at this, but for Ida, it catches a driver off guard if you don't instinctively react to it and respond to it. Based on that experience, it's going to be tough to understand what happens so quickly. Brittany Force was at a bigger disadvantage. Her car breaks traction first. Just better on the throttle, quicker responding to what was happening. And for Ida, a game effort. But take a look, both cars accelerating. Here's a loss of traction for Brittany right there. Now for Ida, she has the quicker car. She has more momentum, but Brittany Force is on the throttle. Good car control. The car wants to get sideways. She has enough experience to know to get off the throttle, allow the car to get straight, centered in her lane, and back on the throttle like an old 60s Top Fuel car with a rooster tail.
It may be the fact, too, Ida never cracked the throttle again. She may have not had a throttle pedal to crack if it deactivated. Brittany Force goes to round 2. We're coming right back with more.
It's hard to explain what this feels like.
Official coffee of the NHRA in the pit area here. High energy, great samples being given out. This is a veteran and first responder owned and operated company with a very tasty product if you're a coffee drinker. The U.S. Air Force here with their interactive Shadow Strike setup, talking to a whole lot of people over the course of the weekend and allowing them to experience the Shadow Strike operation they have there. And Antron Brown's crew pulling the tire covers off, making a final, or one of the final tire pressure adjustments. They'll continue to monitor that as they come around the corner. Dan Mercier and Justin Ashley on the starting line right now. The Skag Power Equipment Top Fuel dragster that looked almost untouchable a week ago and then smoked the tires in the late rounds has Dan Mercier, who made the semifinals for the second time in Maple Grove. Let's talk more about Justin.
Brian, talking about Justin this morning, he said, not only did we look good in Richmond, we looked good, really good in the last qualifying run. We made a run. We learned a lot off of conditions similar today. The unfortunate thing is it's nitro in a tank. Anything can happen, especially when it gets hot and nasty out. Ashley smokes the tires. Here we go again. Mercier's car is trying to hang in there. And at the finish line, it is a whole shot victory for Justin Ashley. Good gravy. 449.8 beats a 441.
What is going on around here?
The age-old argument, is it the horse or is it the rider? I'm going to tell you something not a lot of people are going to agree with. Sometimes it is actually the rider, and Justin Ashley just proved that. He gets off the starting line. He instantly starts to lose traction. There's the big starting line differential right there. It appears that he could be on his way. There's the white smoke. He's lost traction, and now it looks like Dan Mercier's on his way. Then comes a tire smoke. But again, experience, good throttle maintenance, good instincts from a good driver, but it's the reaction time combined with the ability to control the throttle, to control the car, and to chase down Mercier for Justin Ashley to get to the finish line first. And sometimes a driver will just step in and save the tune-up.
Ashley was 17 green. We get a bunch of the NASCAR drivers here this weekend because they raced Bristol last night. And the stock car drivers are getting a good experience into what a drag racing driver actually does. That is what a tire smoking, cylinder out, whole shot win looks like for Justin Ashley. Let's talk to Brittany Forrest, who survived her matchup pedaling around Ida.
Wow. I do just got to point out quickly that Lori Force is right over here taking photographs of Brittany after an incredible driving performance. Brian Loans called it a gutsy drive. How much of experience jumped in there for you?
Well, we're going back to experience on, so many times where we pedal it and we didn't get there first. Just last weekend, I pedaled the thing and then it had no power and we were out ahead of Steve Torrance. That was really frustrating to lose that way. Went up and right away, went up in smoke, pedaled the thing, it got sideways. I had to really wait and let it calm down, and that's so tough to do when I can't see her next to us. And then I freaking stepped on it, slowly rolled into it, and we got to the beam first. Very excited for this HendrickCars.com team. Whew, that was a tough first round, but we got it.
Not that we ever doubted, but she's clearly John's daughter. She was fired up.
It sounded like a 20-second explanation for a 4-second run.
Well, Josh Hart and Sean Langdon come to the starting line now in the game of what's going to happen next here in Charlotte. The TechNet Brakes for Breast Cancer Awareness car, the R&L Carriers name on the mud flaps and the wing for Josh Hart. 0-2 versus Sean Langdon this season, and the Coletta Air Top Fuel Dragster of Sean Langdon. Crew Chief Brian Houston might be chewing through his fingernails by the time this one's over.
Well, just speaking from experience, both these drivers recognize, they're hearing, they're seeing what is going on in front of them. They're hoping the car's there, but they're also anticipating their car breaking traction and them responding the right way.
Ashley smokes, or rather Hart smokes the tires, and Langdon's car sounded unhealthy, but he does run a 377.5, which may as well be a 2-second run.
That unhealthy sound might have been them slipping the clutch, which is exactly what you have to do in these warmer conditions. And you can credit the tuner right there. There was at
377.5, yeah,
right to the finish line. Raw Fuel, that was when the car was at the 1,000-foot mark at that stage.
The Fred Astaire of Top Fuel, Justin Ashley, is with Amanda Busick.
Justin Ashley had like 3 different head shakes looking at that time slip. What won that race, Justin?
The team. It's funny how things work. The sport is very humbling, and I think we were fortunate to get that round win. I know Dan, I was just saying to him, dating back to the A Fuel days, we raced against each other, and he's coming off a semi-5 finish, so that's a really good team. I have a lot of respect for them over there, but our guys work hard. We escaped that round. Now we got to focus on round 2, but just kudos to our entire Skag Power Equipment, Toyota, RC, and Capital Phillips team. They are working incredibly hard, so we got to come back now, learn from it, and we'll see if we can do it again.
So for Justin Ashley, a sigh of relief, he moves to round 2. Now here's something we haven't seen in a while. The Pep Boys drone, not that. We see that all the time. We see Antron all the time. But what we haven't seen since 2021 is Steve Torrance and Antron Brown racing in a first round. It's been 3 years since these guys have been stuffed into this tight a squeeze. And now we talk about this week's E3 Spark Plugs building a team with Antron Brown.
Antron Brown is playing a role in developing the next level of drivers here in the NHRA. You can see Angel Sampe behind us. She was the latest winner in the alcohol dragster ranks last weekend in Reading, Pennsylvania. And Antron, you've made this your mission. Why?
Because this is what we need to do for the sport, and you want to bring people into the sport that's going to bring new energy, new vibe, and that's what Angel does, just like Hunter Green, Julie Natas, and all these other great drivers out here. And it feels good to see her go from bikes to A-Fuel. Now we can put in a Top Fuel car. She was always a starter sport, and we're just looking for her to keep rising. And I told her one day I want to whoop her tail in a Top Fuel car.
So there is a statement from Antron, and here comes the Mac Tools car. For Antron, there's a little breathing room here. You win the last race, you get a little freedom to move around. But for Steve Torrance, you lose this round, it's basically curtains.
Yeah, both these drivers, they can dance in the event they need to. If these cars lose traction, they hope they don't have to do that.
Antron is out, and Antron is gone. Antron Brown on a hole shot at 382 beats a 381, and again for Steve Torrence, it is just a very troubling situation here. A 113 reaction time. You can have pain of being outrun, but it is the regret of a hole shot that sticks to your ribs.
And for Antron Brown, it wasn't a small starting line advantage. It was a substantial starting line advantage, and Antron Brown would be in the range in terms of his reaction times of where you would expect for him to be. And Steve Torrence just continues to just throw the ball to the defender. I mean, it is the equivalent of that for a driver, and he just has the quicker car, but he's second off the line. And Antron Brown, no issues, no traction problems, good clutch management by both of these tuners.
A first round that was as chaotic as any we have seen so far this year. Hole shots, pretty much everybody pedaling, and now Sean Langdon and Doug Coletta have to race each other in round 2. Billy Torrence and Antron Brown, he got one of them. He's going to try to get them both as far as Antron goes. Brittany in play, and Justin Ashley will take on Doug Foley. Buddy Hall with his baby Maverick up here in the stage. And now it's the Jack Beckman signature edition baby Maverick. When we come back, no more babies.
You don't need the official spark plug of
Here at ZMAX Dragway, and for this week's Dodge Tales from the Strip, we of course look at a Dodge funny car, that being that of Matt Hagan, who ran 399.5 here to break the 4-second barrier back in 2011.
Design a streamlined carbon fiber body that include Ford's Mustang, Chevy's Camaro, Dodge's Hellcat, and Toyota's GR Supra. 17.5-inch white Goodyears with a soft rubber compound for traction. The supercharged engine will consume over 17 gallons of nitromethane fuel from startup, burnout, backup, and a run at over 300 miles per hour down a 1,000-foot racetrack in less than 4 seconds.
They are incredible machines. They are fickle. They are hard to drive. And they are largely unpredictable. At least they were until this guy came along, Austin Prock, who won the U.S. Nationals and then went along to win the Pep Boys Nationals 7 days ago at Maple Grove Raceway in Pennsylvania. He stood in triumph atop his Chevrolet Camaro, and he looks to do the same thing this weekend. It may be a bit more challenging, though, as Matt Hagan stepped up to the plate to grab the #1 position. Bruno Massel is with Austin Prock.
Austin Prock has had a dominant rookie season, coming off another dominant victory in Reading, Pennsylvania. Conditions this weekend, it is going to be hot and nasty. We have a late start today, 90-degree temperatures. Is that an asset or a liability for this team?
I think it's an asset. You know, we've made really good runs when it's really hot out, 140-degree track temp. This thing still flies, so we can run in just about anything, and I'm looking forward to today. We haven't had quite the weekend, we have in the past, but I know my dad and brother are up there working hard, and we'll get this thing dialed in for today.
He mentioned those 140-degree track temperatures. That was back in Richmond, Virginia, which all rolls into the season recap. The 9 final rounds, the 6 wins, one of which came at those Virginia Nationals on a boiling hot weekend. 11 #1 qualifiers. He is actually trying to break some single-season marks that John Force has set as far as #1 qualifiers and different things. It's a pretty incredible thing. We go back now at some qualifying highlights for Funny Car, specifically those of Matt Hagan. The first qualifying session on Friday afternoon, he had us both up in our seats because of this particular run. A really blazing 386.5.
Yeah, it started early for this team. You can tell it is very apparent that they made some changes, possibly with the chassis. However, it really was pretty impressive in the first qualifying session and much more impressive at night.
That early setup run allowed them to really turn the knobs to 11 on this thing and went 383. Nobody could catch them.
They were 2 for 2, quickest car in both qualifying sessions on Friday, and you can see how quick the car was accelerating in the 1/8 of a mile at 292 miles per hour.
That PPG Mustang of Bob Tasker III was looking good, but Hagan looking best. 4-time Funny Car World Champion. He has 15 race wins inside the countdown to the championship. And he, like Antron Brown, has won multiple races 4 times over the course of his playoff career. We're with him in the pits.
Hot conditions here in Charlotte, North Carolina means we could see drivers on and off the throttle here in competition today. And Matt, how well do you adapt in those situations?
Well, we got obviously a fast race car, #1 qualifier, but yeah, as a driver, you got to be ready today. I mean, the sun's out, the track's going to be probably 120, 130 eventually today. So yeah, as a driver, sometimes you got to go earn your money, but this is a big race for us. It could be a good turning point to kind of get right back in the hunt with it. Obviously, we struggled last race a little bit, but it's just one of those things where we need to make these rounds count today. And if a driver's got to do his job, then hopefully a driver gets to do a job.
We'll see what kind of job he does if he gets past Dave Richards in round 1. He'll have a bye in round 2. Bob Task in the third may have his work cut out for him with Cruz Pedregon.
Yeah, for Austin Prock, this is by far the toughest side of the ladder. You have Ron Capps, Jack Beck,
a cancer survivor, a friend, and a diehard drag racing fan. She was invited to be in the seat to warm this car up, and she got the experience of a Nitro fan's lifetime sitting behind that 11,000 horsepower engine. She looks very attentive to what was going on around her. Paul Smith to the right, John with Diane, and that smile, you can't beat it. We return to the starting line. We saw so much pedaling and wackiness at Top Fuel. One mind's reel begins to kind of move here when you think about what could possibly happen in Funny Car. And here we go again. Alexander's going to try to make a run at it, but it is not happening. And the careless whisper of a Funny Car cruising to the finish line. John Smith goes 5:19, and the underdog strikes again.
Well, it becomes about who was closest with the tune-up, and that man right there, Paul Smith, he's got enough experience that these are his kind of conditions, and as well as the driver, for John Smith, he has just enough experience that he knew what to do. Blake Alexander pretty much out of the race right off of the starting line, but before that car can get to the 8th mile, it starts to lose traction. It's actually a good launch there. The front tires were up in the air, but as it starts to accelerate, at 330 feet, that's that second orange block right there. Just beyond that, it's John Smith that starts to strike the tires, and he gets off the throttle and encountered bigger problems, but at that point, it appeared that he was going to get to the finish line first.
So right now, low ET of the first round is 5:19 after one pair. And Dave Richards may be looking over at Matt Hagan thinking, don't count me out yet, Matt. The Pep Boys drone looking down the Johnson's Horsepower Garage Dodge. The winner of this pair will have a bye into the semifinals. We've seen Terry Haddock turn this trick against Ron Capps a couple years ago in Epping, New Hampshire. We have seen, in odd fashion, several underdog cars, including this one, the Bluebird Turf Ford, bust their way out of a first round and get a bye. It has not been a good weekend for these guys. Let's be real.
No, but their first qualifying effort was a 420. That's what they need to focus on. And unlike the Top Fuel cars, these shorter wheelbase Funny Cars, they don't flex and twist. They can't distribute the weight to the rear tires as good. So you thought those Top Fuel cars or drivers or tuners had a tough time on this hot track. It could be tougher for the Funny
winner of this pair will have a bye into the semifinals. We've seen Terry Haddock turn this trick against Ron Capps a couple years ago in Epping, New Hampshire. We have seen, in odd fashion, several underdog cars, including this one, the Bluebird Turf Ford, bust their way out of a first round and get a bye. It has not been a good weekend for these guys. Let's be real.
No, but their first qualifying effort was a 420. That's what they need to focus on. And unlike the Top Fuel cars, these shorter wheelbase Funny Cars, they don't flex and twist. They can't distribute the weight to the rear tires as good. So you thought those Top Car tuner, but it doesn't have to be that way. They can make adjustments to the clutch to allow this car. It's going to slow down. You'll lose a little performance, but if you could slip and work that clutch more in the first 660 feet, that's going to give you your best chance for success.
Matt Hagan puts a cylinder out late, but drives down to a 397.6 at 320 miles an hour. Credit where it's due for the Richards team. That is a great regroup run for that team. 409.5, more than respectable and clean.
Yeah, it really is. You give them a lot of credit, but you can again see the big starting line at work. An 0.68 reaction time for Matt Hagan. This guy is ready, and ready to time for Matt Hagan. This guy is ready and ready to win. But again, a tuner making all the right adjustments, changing the target. In terms of performance for Matt Hagan, really didn't give him a lot to do that he had to do in the course of the run.
Austin Prock will be on the starting line when we come back to ZMAX Dragway, the meanest, nastiest funny car in the land. And the man who has won the last 2 races will be up against Alexis DeJoria. Nhra Insider Podcast. Tony was interviewing the drivers and all of a sudden became part of the autograph session. He got swept up in it.
Yeah, I've been out of the game for a little while, and I was being asked if I had a Sharpie. I haven't had a Sharpie for 8 years.
He was able to scarf a Sharpie.
The addition of my brother Thomas to the team has really helped us get down a hot track. It's funny because just moments ago, Jimmy Prock, in typical Jimmy Prock fashion, said this track is falling off a cliff and shook his head and walked away. So apparently they're going to need some of Thomas's tuning ability here.
One of the great things about Jimmy Prock is I'm not sure he's ever seen a track he has liked, but he has found a lot of tracks he's been able to go really fast down.
Well, some irony with this matchup. Another guy that just so happens to be good, and it just so happens to be tuning this Alexis DeJoria machine.
The Pandero Cafe DeJoria machine. The Pandero Cafe Tequila car. The simple fact of the matter here is for Alexis, she needs to find the starting line, and she needs to find its exit very quickly against one of the best drivers in the category. She did it. Oh, but it smoked the tire. She's going to pedal it, and Prock, with a big header flame out of the right side, will escape with his hide here, a 396.5 at 319. But boy, she almost put the fear of the end times into him.
You gotta love to see that for Alexis. She's able to do that every now and again when it matters the most. Unfortunately, that car just did not stick to this race surface. And just take a look at this starting line advantage, that jump that she gets. And not a lot of drivers are able to do that with Austin Prock. Had she had the car, had the performance, you can see that early lead within the first 60, 100 feet. She has about a wheel on Austin Prock, just a loss of traction, and you can't hardly blame the tuner. You have to do a lot to beat this team.
There was a quarter of a half of an eighth of a moment where Austin Prock might have thought he was in trouble there. And then she smoked the tires, and his car, again, mixing up some cylinders maybe late in the run, but still, a victory is a victory. And so the cars are lit now. That is Jack Beckman, that peak performance Chevrolet Camaro in his points-earning mission for John Force and Buddy Hall, the Lescure Mechanical Services Dodge across the drag strip. And when we talk about the car that Jack Beckman's driving and how fast it is, Chris Cunningham's one of the guys who's done it, and he's the subject of this week's Cornwell Quality Tools Crew Chief Confidential.
Catching up with Chris Cunningham here from Jack Beckman's team, obviously John Force Racing. You guys have had two cars running on mean lately, both made into the finals. How close are these cars set up? Can you tune off another?
They're actually not set up at all alike. We got a different clutch. We share the same philosophy, but our clutches are totally different. They got different heads on it than we run. So we're kind of on our own when we're running these cars, but the results sure look the same.
Whose car's better?
Mine. Ours. They're all better.
The Pep Boys drone looking down on these two brightly colored funny cars on a racetrack that is getting as hot as a skillet here by the moment. For Buddy Hall, his 31st career start and his first full-time season of Nitro Funny Car Drag Racing, picked up his first round win at the U.S. Nationals. There's Chris Cunningham looking on to the funny car that he and Daniel Hood, Tim Fabrizi worked so hard on, and Jack has driven very well so far.
He's driven very well, and this car, even more so than Austin Prock, during qualifying was the quickest, the most consistent on average, and that gives them a good chance. And you can see the target from the first couple of cars that have advanced. The mid-90 range seems to be what it's going to take.
Hall's car breaks traction, and Jack Beckman goes 393.4. Be afraid. Be afraid of that car. It is that good.
It is that good, and you can see what the difference in his run versus his teammate Austin Prock that ran just in front of him, and it was the clutch management. Take a listen. As that car approaches the finish line, it's just revving up a little more. These cars will leave at about 8,200 RPM. It starts to apply the clutch. It starts to squeeze and transfer that power to those rear tires. It's 1-to-1 at this point, but not on a hot day like this, and they just did it a little bit better than anyone else to this point. Ron, Tony, and Brian here in the booth. What are you anticipating? I'm sure you hear what's going on out there. A lot of cars losing traction. What's the approach going to be like for you guys?
I'm going to do what I always do, and that's rely on Garrido and our Napa guys. We don't have lane choice. They're the last pair, so conditions are getting worse. As we go along, it's getting hotter, it's getting crazier. So they're stacked against us a little bit. But as always, man, I got all the trust in the world in these guys. So.
Thanks and best of luck.
So Ron Capps expressing that confidence he needs to have in his team. Cruz Pedregon and Bob Taska III backing up. For Cruz Pedregon, it is the Socket to Breast Cancer colors again. He is working with the Pink Foundation, and we met up with Cruz and some representation from the Pink Foundation in the pits.
Cruz Pedregon's long-standing relationship with the Pink Fund is entering into its 10th season this year in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And Cruz, how much do you look forward to racing in the fall?
Well, every year it's a new paint scheme, and Snap-on does a great job internally of designing the paint scheme. They outdid themselves this year. This is a nice looking car, and plus having the 2,300 all the franchisee and associates signing at the SFC was really cool. So great honor to be part of the Pink Fund. It helps a lot of families, including my sister. So just hope it has a good effect. And thanks for Snap-on for supporting it.
And Katie Maxwell with the Pink Fund. As Cruz just said, breast cancer affects many people, and you guys look at it from a very unique perspective. How does the Pink Fund help victims and their family?
Definitely. So at Pink Fund, we really focus on the financial side of a cancer diagnosis. We pay those household bills for patients and their families so that they can focus on healing and getting better. You know, being here at the drag races is so exciting. This is a high performance sport that really, wants to keep cars on the track, and that's what Pink Fund wants to do. We want to keep those cars running and taking patients to their treatments. Transportation access is really a big part of that, and Pink Fund can help pay those bills. This partnership with Cruise and Snap-on over the years has produced over $1.1 million in donations to Pink Fund here in the U.S. and the Kelly Shires Foundation in Canada. And we are so grateful to be working with such a relationship-driven company, and are looking forward to the rest of the season here in October, seeing this great car going down the track. If you want to learn more, visit pinkfund.org.
So for Cruz Pedregon, he has a big challenge here with Bob Tasker III in the PPG colors. Tasker came in with a car that was much quicker in qualifying, 88 to his 403.
And for Cruz and the Snap-on team, the best qualifying run came in that last session. Conditions similar to what we have right now. If they can work off of that, they should be able to challenge Tasker. Tasker, not an easy opponent for them in the other lane. They know they cannot lay up that much.
Those 2,300 signatures riding on the body. The Cruz is named El Mero Mero. Bob was out quicker. Cruz is up by the center line, and Bob has his hands full down there. 398.8, 316 miles an hour. By no means an oil painting, but it's a win light.
For some of these drivers that are in the countdown, an 0.46 reaction time, a sign of respect for Bob Tasker, knowing that he's got his hands full with that Snap-on machine. And it was a game effort for Cruz. That car was locked down. You can see them. They are second off the line. Quick reaction, quick reflexes for Tasker. And like Jack Beckman, that car was in the center of the lane and maintaining a high level of traction on a track that has 120 degrees plus on the surface.
Cruz's car just relentlessly pushing to the inside of the lane, finally putting one tire outside the groove, and that is when the traction disappeared. When we come back, the Skag Power Equipment Mustang of Dan Wilkerson will be on the starting line as the Summit Inc car shows us heading to the water box.
I didn't have to spend my life trying to...
You can see there were some casualties in the footwear department, as there always are. It's a unique experience. You never really understand how much traction a drag strip is providing until you actually get out there and put your own shoe leather on one. We do it every Sunday, and you should be a part of it next time you come out and see us in the NHRA Mission Foods Drag Racing Series Tour. Matt Hagan has drag racing's supreme opponent in round 2. Nobody. A bye run. Smith Tasker, Proc, and Beckman both awaiting their dance partner. The Pep Boys drone looks down the DHL GR Supra. We talked about Dan Wilkerson, but Bruno's going to tell us more about J.R. Todd.
Catching in with J.R. Todd this morning about his weekend so far. He said, honestly, our Achilles heel really has been qualifying all season long. It's kind of been something that we just don't perform like we need to. We're testing stuff on trying to get ahead in the game, and it puts us back against the wall, puts us up against the 8-ball. We always have a tougher one-round opponent, because that's not the way you go if you want to win a championship. You've got to give yourself the best odds to go ahead and win one of these races. Now we just have to fight our way out.
They do, and we talked to him on the NHRA Insider yesterday. JR is always very candid, gives good answers to questions, and he said as much, and there was some frustration building in that team. They want more success. These guys have never raced head-to-head this season.
No, and qualifying hasn't been the issue for this DHL team. They've looked as good as they have. You can say the same about Dan Wilkerson in that other lane.
Dan Wilkerson was 17 on the Christmas tree, and at the finish line, it's a whole shot win. 398 beats a 394, and there are times in this sport where somebody just happens, and Dan Wilkerson just happened to J.R. Todd.
Look at his dad, Tim Wilkerson, trying to process everything that happened. That's the way you do it right there. That is how you execute beating a good driver off the starting line. When I say good driver, J.R. Todd has done that to some of the best this year. He's done that to Austin Prock. He's done the same thing to Matt Hagan. And it is Dan Wilkerson that pulls out the hat trick and gets the jump off the starting line. Give the driver all the credit for doing that. Whether he rolled the dice or not, he sensed the urgency. He executed. His tuner gave him a car. It looked like he wasn't going to be able to hold the lead at the finish line. The car starts to lose traction.
And you can see Dan keeping that car in its lane. It was trying to get away from him, as a funny car always does. And for Dan Wilkerson and the Skag Mustang team, one of the biggest single-round victories of their year. And I have to guess, a guy who is typically fired up on the normal day is probably over the moon right now.
Well, just like the movie A Bronx Tale, he had to take a shot, and it worked.
And Jack Beckman has been taking shots since he got into John Force's car. He's with Amanda.
Stupid stuff to think about. Nice.
Drama here this morning for Jack Beckman. While that run looked good, it almost didn't happen. What was the issue, Jack?
Well, I'll tell you what the solution was. Is John Force's crew on the Pete Camaro here, they're bad, you know what's here. The fuel pump shutoff was cracked. The guys noticed it in the staging lanes because even when the car's serviced, it's not done when you get up there. Everybody's looking over. We towed it back to the pits. They got a new one on, strapped me in the pits. I'm not good at driving this thing around the staging lanes. I'm glad I didn't hit anything, and so far we're looking great.
So the Napa chassis cam for Ron Capps as he rolls through the water and heats the tires. We'll be facing off against Texan Chad Green in the Boncoat Boxo Tools Summit Racing Equipment Mustang with support from Skag Power Equipment as well. The Napa GR Super wearing the Dorman colors this week. If you're Ron Capps, who do you think, in your opinion, Ron Capps or Chad Green? The topsy-turvy nature of this first round. I'm going to come back to you in a second, Tony. Let's go to Bruno real quick.
Checking in with Chad Green this morning, he said that he's always been a huge Ron Capps fan. He not only likes the way he drives the car, but the way he handles himself as a professional, both in and out of behind the seat of the car. He said, but today, he's anything but a Ron Capps fan. He said he's a team that is hungry, that has proven they can perform at the highest level, and a win today against Ron Capps, well, to him, that would be an extra little notch in his belt.
The topsy-turvy nature of this first round, if it's going to affect either of them, who's it going to be?
Well, it's going to affect Chad Green more than it is Ron Capps. Ron Capps has been in this seat since the late 90s. He has heard it. He has seen it all. And I'm sure the communication between him and his tuner are a conversation that they're going to take the right approach. They're going to try to plug in something in the mid-90, high 70 range. Again, another matchup where this Napa team, they just can't ease up too much and they'll get outrun.
And Chad Green smokes the tires. Ron Capps will waltz to a 393.3 at 319 miles an hour. One of the only cars to win from that side of the racetrack in this early round of competition. Ron Capps advances.
And this is one of the reasons that the tuners adjust. They're so articulate about the engine idle when they back up from the burnout. And I noticed Chad Green's car, even in qualifying, the car's been hanging the throttle up. I'm not saying that is what caused this car to lose traction instantly, but if that engine idle is up more than what they would like for it to be, it's going to have too much power right off the starting line.
That 393.3 for Ron Capps will place him in competition with Austin Prock in round number 2. The man who everybody's trying to stop early, but who nobody seems to have an answer for, as Chad Green's Boncoat Mustang hazes the tires very shortly after launch. Round 2, this is how it looks. Matt Hagan again with the bye. Smith Tasca, Prock and Capps, and Beckman will take on Dan Wilkerson, who is with Amanda Busick and is likely bouncing off the walls.
We have had eyes on J.R. Todd up here. He keeps staring at the time slip. You wonder if a championship is in that run right there, but the one that it does favor is Daniel Wilkerson, a 17 light. How?
I mean, the first thing I did is I went and apologized to him because I swear I seen the light, but you ain't 17 honest, not in one of these things. So, you know what, today, I'll take it. We've been battling this stupid car for a couple races ever since it popped, and these guys deserve to have a car that goes some rounds. I got 1,000 people that work at Millercraft and Mayville that deserve to go a couple rounds, and we're real proud of this thing, and we're going to try and do it all day long.
New rule, no apologizing for winning. New rule, when we come back, Pro Stock will be on the racetrack. We apologize for nothing around here, specifically winning. But let's check in with Ron Capps. A chef's kiss of a 393. We'll be right back to ZMAX.
Sup?
Who are you?
I'm your inner child. Get in.
To the first ever 300-mile-an-hour, 8th-mile speed in the history of Top Fuel drag racing. It was a great conversation he and Joe Costello had on the stage, but now it's time to switch gears to the gasoline-burning Pro Stockers.
These are 1,400 horsepower, 500 cubic inch all-steel engine blocks with aluminum cylinder heads, electronic fuel injection, and capable of covering a quarter of a mile in just over 6.5 seconds. Top speeds at over 210 miles per hour. Some of the closest racing action of any pro category, and not a lot of downforce on this streamlined body that requires a lot of finesse and precision from the driver.
In some ways, the most unforgiving category in NHRA drag racing. Miss a shift by 200 RPM, miss a starting line reaction time by just 1,000th of a second, you could lose. But Aaron Stanfield has been money in the bank this year, winning the U.S. Nationals and going on to win at Maple Grove Raceway at the Pep Boys Nationals. This was the celebration at Indy when he won 2 categories at the U.S. Nationals and then went on to win again to start the countdown in Pennsylvania with a whole shot victory over Erica Enders in the finals. The last 7 races have been nothing less than magnificent, except for Seattle, but hey, nobody's perfect.
Well, this is the right strategy for a team. For Aaron Stanfield, you want to peak at the right time, and you can see the progression of improvement for this team.
We're going double A. Amanda is with Aaron in the pits.
Sitting inside of this Maple Grove winning race car will be that man right there, Aaron Stanfield. And we were just talking about the track and your anticipation that it's going to lose grip as we move through today. How do you compensate for that?
So, thankfully, I've got some really smart people that make the decisions on this hot rod. But yes, it's going to be the warmest conditions we've had all weekend, and as more cars get on it, the track conditions might deteriorate a little bit. So they're preparing for that, and I think I got the right people in my corner, and this thing's been running good, and if I can do my job, we should have a good day.
And that job will require perfection in the seat. It will require perfection in the tune-up as well. We look at our Pro Stock ladder, brought to us by Lucas Oil. It is all elite here. Troy Coughlin Jr. and Jerry Tucker, Dallas Glenn, Mason McGahey over there as well.
Aaron will start his day going up against Chris McGahey, one of the Quadra boys, against Corey Reed and Greg Anderson in a very strong qualifying position, starting as number 2.
And now we get some highlights here from round 1 eliminations in Pro Stock. The number 8 and 9 qualifiers, Troy Coughlin Jr. and Jerry Don Tucker, teammates at Elite Motorsports, lining up here to kick things off. The Outlaw Mile High light beer car. And Coughlin's car just ripped the tires very early. Tony lost traction, and Tucker cruises to a win.
Well, always big surprises, even in Pro Stock. Troy Coughlin Jr. was the higher qualified car.
These cars, when they come off the starting line, unlike a Top Fuel car or a funny car, you have the weight transfer with a full suspension, and if it's not perfect, they will go in a tire shake, and that's exactly what happened to Troy Coughlin Jr. The next pair was Christian Quadra lining up next to Corey Reed, something we saw a lot of at the Maple Grove race. Starting line tension, the 2 drivers of the opposing KB Titan and Elite Motorsports teams, and Corey Reed fell victim to a red light, a big one.
And for Corey Reed again, he's just facing the better car during qualifying, just decided to take a shot on the starting line. It was way too much of a guess for him.
And so then we moved on to the 3rd pair of the first round of Pro Stock. That was Jake Coughlin and Eric Latino. Coughlin was chomping at the bit to get here. You heard him at the top of the show when he red lit in the first round at Pennsylvania. He said, "Let me at him." And boy, he took the fight to Eric Latino and the Jesse Compressors car. It was Skag Cat's Eye Gold all the way.
Yeah, for Jake Coughlin Jr., the best way to put that red light behind him was to come out here and get to the 2nd round.
Cameron Caruso, the big Jeff's Audio machine. True Brands, Jesse and others, and Matt Hartford. Hartford, the Rob's Towing, Total Seal, Getrex Camaro. His old car, pulled out of the mothballs, has now served him well 2 races in a row. He was within 6,000ths off the starting line. Caruso's car had trouble, and Matt Hartford advances to round number 2. We're going to take a ride with Matt now.
Well, Matt, he is picking the pace up on the starting line, getting some consistency by way of performance.
Neat as a pin and straight as an arrow for Matt Hartford. Kenny Delco, the stalwart competitor in Pro Stock, lined up next to Dallas Glenn, the Rad Torque Systems. Chevrolet Camaro with help from Summit Racing Equipment, DPFPartsDirect.com as well. And Mason McGahey of Odessa, Texas. McGahey can be dangerous on the starting line, but this time it was all Dallas Glenn.
Yeah, Dallas Glenn, he is looking just as good as he did a week ago. He was able to, rather, he was not able to keep up the pace as it got towards the late rounds, but he's looking as strong as ever here.
Greg Anderson lining up with Kenny Delco. Anderson comes off with an 0.59 reaction time. Look at Kenny Delco, though, hanging on his back bumper as they got to the stripe. It was Anderson going a 6:59.6 to 207.69 miles an hour. The Summit Racing Equipment onboard trip down the quarter mile with Greg Anderson to a win line.
And it looks like Greg Anderson, as well as Dallas Glenn, look to get beyond those semifinal finishes they had just 1 week ago.
The man, the myth, and the burgeoning legend of Aaron Stanfield, the multiple race wins back-to-back on the Toyota side, and Chris McGahey, Mason McGahey's dad on the E3 spark plug side. And you saw the move there with your own 2 eyes. Aaron Stanfield left first in that Melling Performance Johnson's Horsepower Garage Camaro typically doesn't give ground back. 6:59.9 beats a 6:66, and Derek Reese had the unenviable task of facing off against Eric Enders in round 1.
If you're Derek Reese, you've got nothing to lose if you take a shot on the starting line.
He took a shot. It just landed outside the dartboard. He went red. Erica moves on, and she was not low ET of the round. It's the first run she's made this weekend that did not leave her the quickest on the property. That said, she is within a handful of thousands of those quickest cars. It'll be Jerry Don Tucker facing Eric Enders. It'll be Dallas Glenn and Matt Hartford. Anderson Quadra, Stanfield, Coughlin Jr. We're going to talk to Greg Anderson. It is the hometown of HendrickCars.com action. He's with Amanda.
Greg Anderson held the Wally here in the spring. It was in the 4-wide format, but it was also your last win on tour. And you just said, what the heck have I been doing? How do you change that luck here today?
You need luck. You need to perform. These guys are so tough out here right now. It's so hard to win, but you know what? I feel like I got a great car. That was a great run. I'll certainly take that for a start. We're at Charlotte, Mr. Hendrick's hometown, my hometown. Obviously, everybody saw Kyle Larson last night, right? I think that might be the motivation I need right there.
And Kyle Larson, a dominating performance at Bristol Motor Speedway, leading nearly the entire race. For Hector Rana Jr., he led the last lap at the Pep Boys Nationals. When we come back, we'll see if he can lead the first lap here at Pro Stock Motorcycle. Sorry, Antron.
Start your day with a bang.
Tonight we had freestyle motocross racers here. Whether it was Superman or whether it was backflips or flapping their arms, these guys put on a heck of a show. Now, Tony, we have to talk about our Earthbound Pro Stock motorcycles. They'll pull the front end up a little bit, but not like that.
Well, they are high-revving Suzukis with 4 cylinders competing with a 2-cylinder V-twin engine design. Both will generate up to 400 horsepower, and like Pro Stock cars, will compete in a quarter of a mile, and given the right conditions, can exceed over 200 miles per hour. Lightweight machines and riders with a minimum weight of just over 600 pounds, depending on the type of engine, cylinder head, and weight break.
And they, too, are affected by hot temperatures. They only have 1 tire to put all that horsepower through, so their starting line antics may be very, very interesting today. But Hector Rana Jr. changed the game a bit, certainly changed the chat about who could win a championship in 2024 with a victory, some would call unexpected victory, at the Pep Boys Nationals. This team certainly knew what they were capable of, and they showed the rest of the world. Forgetting to talk about Hector could be a significant mistake as we look at Hector Rana Jr.'s countdown history as Richard Gadsden pushed his runner-up bike behind him. 8 race wins, second most in Pro Stock Motorcycle. A best championship finish of 30. He's done that 3 times, and he kicked off 2024 with a victory. And now he's in the pits with Bruno Massel.
Hector Rana Sr. celebrated his 66th birthday last night, and Junior looking to celebrate another victory on the season. Big victory for you guys in Reading. You guys now are officially contenders for the championship. What has happened for this team to really step up?
Yeah, you know what? The recent rule change definitely helped us racing a Gen 1 V-twin to catch up to the rest of the field. But, you know, my dad's working really hard back at the shop to make this bike as fast as possible. And this Getrix Buell, we did our job to make it consistent. So we're just going to continue doing that this weekend. And we're going to just build off of that mojo that we have from Reading and just try to keep up that confidence and go rounds.
And now let's look at our Pro Stock Motorcycle competition ladder. Matt Smith will be unopposed, potentially racing his wife in round 2 unless Gino Scali stops her. Let's watch and listen. Pretty decent amount of directional adjustment made during the first 8 mile of that run until the bike settled down into the groove. And these bikes will pick up the front end and kind of bounce it occasionally. John Hall and Kelly Klontz lined up side by side. Hall, the Denso team bike to Matt Smith Racing. Kelly Klontz, the Steam Fitters Union sponsor machine. For John Hall, it's another round win. And one of the best seasons this guy's had in his career. It's a hole shot win at that.
Not a hole shot for John Hall. He was the lower qualified machine. A great execution for a rider. And it was that hole shot win that allowed him to advance.
And what we see now is Chase Van Zandt lining up next to Mark Ingerson. These two statistically are the best leavers in the category. And Mark Ingerson said, believe that. He goes 0-18 on the tree. Chase Van Zandt was 31. The Trick Tools motorcycle and Tim Kalungian stood up, carry the day.
That's as close as they get right there for Chase Van Zandt. Thank goodness he had the power to drive around or to ride around Mark.
And so Chase Van Zandt advances on to round number 2, and Mark Ingerson brought the fight to him about a wheel diameter behind him going across the finish line. The next pair, the Pep Boys Nationals victor, the Getrex Buell of Hector Rana Jr. and Chris Bostic across the racetrack in the bright white motorcycle.
There it is, Hector Rana Jr. just starting to pull away. What a pleasant surprise to see Hector come into the mix, start to mix it up into that conversation along with Gage Herrera and Matt Smith.
6:89.9. At that moment that run happened, that was low ET of the round. Gianna Evaristo lined up next to Steve Johnson. Evaristo looking to push past the disappointment of her early round loss in Pennsylvania. And again, it will be the other rider getting the frustrations taken out. She had to ride this thing. She was hanging off the side of it, but she gets the win.
She did everything right. She had to negotiate the bike, keep it in the center of the lane, but she was able to get the jump off of Steve Johnson as well.
Ron Torno lined up next to Richard Gadsden. Gadsden, the Vance & Hines, Revzilla, Suzuki Hayabusa, and Ron Torno, whose engine was repaired by Matt Smith this week. The motorcycle tried to push itself to the center line, and Gadsden just throttle open. Check this out, 6:84.6, better by a half a tenth than everybody else.
It's getting quicker and quicker for a lot of these riders. It'll be interesting to see what Matt Smith can do.
Gage Herrera, Marcus Hilton. Hilton riding the Gann family motorcycle right side, and Herrera the second half of the Vance & Hines team. Did not take Marcus Hilton lightly and then thumped him at the finish line.
No, and Marcus Hilton, he's doing well. Look at how quick he is right off the starting line alongside of Gage Herrera. Just needs a better machine. Impressive run for Gage.
And finally, Denso sponsored round on his Denso sponsored Buell. A little bit of a leftward lean here for Smith, but then he was tucked in, locked down, and crossed the finish line. 6:83.3, 199, quickest man on the grounds again.
Yeah, not a lot of pressure with no opponent in the other lane, but that's how you want to perform on a single for Matt Smith.
It will be Smith versus Smith in round 2. Remember the last time they raced, Angie got the better of him. Gage Herrera will take on John Hall. Gadsden will take on Chase Van Zandt. Let's speak to Chase.
Chase Van Zandt handed the time slip to Mark Ingerson and said, man, that was a close race. And when it's that tight there at the stripe, what sensations as a driver are you experiencing visually? Can you hear him?
Yeah, I could hear him the whole way. You know, it was a good race, and I looked over around the 1,000 foot, and I could see his front wheel just behind mine, and I was like, man, if I was a bracket racer, this would be one where I'm not lifting. So Mark's been on fire lately. He's been qualifying really well. I hate racing him first round because I do have a lot of respect for him and his team, but lucky to get past that one. We're figuring it out here slowly but surely. The weather's really throwing some wrenches in our plans, but yeah, hopefully we're in for a good day.
And so that's how it looked in the first round of Pro Stock Motorcycle. Tony Stewart hanging out with, hey, who's that? Kevin Harvick, his wife Delana, and his son Keelan here this weekend, and they're going to be hanging out with us in the booth here in just a few minutes. I'm sure his son got a bigger kick out of being in the cockpit of a Top Fuel car than our broadcast booth, but we'll give him a test drive when we come back.
One of the main reasons for poor vehicle performance is a dirty fuel system. It can cause decreased
slow-mo footage. It begins with Cruz Pedregon collecting broadcasting favorite, a podcasting favorite. Kevin Harvick, what's going on, man? How are you enjoying your day at the drags?
Well, I'm taking this all in. We brought the family out here today, and we've had a great day so far, just enjoying the cars and the sights and the sounds and the smells, and you know, that's really what drag racing's all about, right?
Absolutely.
Well, Kevin, I got a two-part question. A, I want to know what the craziest thing that you've driven on any racetrack, but I want to ask you about your son. The last time I saw you was a few years ago. It was a Daytona, and your son was in a kart.
Well, it's the craziest thing I've ever driven. We had these Grand American rules at home in Bakersfield at Mesa Marin back in the day, and they had everybody agreed there were no motor rules. So we had a big aluminum big block that we had in this Grand American car, and it had 8-inch treaded tires on the back of it, and that thing would spin the tires all the way down the straightaway. So that was fun to drive. Keelan is up to the same thing. He's been driving his Legend car now. Probably dip into the late model. Hopefully he's not driving that Top Fuel car, but Tony had him inside the Top Fuel car. car today, kind of teaching him what all the switches and buttons and levers and everything was inside of the car. So pretty cool to take in a different form of racing. I'm a motorsports fan in general, and to be able to see Tony for the first time outside of that competitive NASCAR atmosphere is an eye-opener for me because of how relaxed he was.
Well, we're going to go into round 2 action here at ZMAX Dragway for these Carolina Nationals, and we're going to hang on to this guy for a minute, I think. Brittany Forrest climbing into her car in the staging lanes. HendraCars.com colors. Clay Millican will be next to her in this second round of competition as we get a look now at our competition ladder here, presented by Lucas Oil, flying over the top of the speedway, a place you're way more familiar with than this side of the racetrack over here. It'll be Justin Ashley and Doug Foley. Foley, the big upset winner, coming out of the 12th spot in the first round. Brittany Forrest and Clay Millican, as mentioned. Forrest trying to claw her way up the points chase. The teammates, Doug Coletta and Sean Langdon, that could come with an air of intrigue with that fourth pair. And the first pair on the racetrack right now, Billy Torrance and Antron Brown. And Tony, we saw Steve Torrance go out on a whole shot loss to Antron. And if we're going to compare driver reaction time averages, Antron has a major league advantage over Billy Torrance.
Well, we mentioned, you go back a week ago, Antron Brown winning the first race of the countdown. He got a couple of breaks along the way, but some of these good drivers, they create their own breaks. And for Antron Brown, he is here because he was the quicker reacting driver off the starting line. Now he has to deal with the father.
The track now 126 degrees. Billy steps up the plate, but man, that thing burning the valve out of the motor. You saw the big flame coming out of the left-hand side. Antron Brown at 386 and 321.
Yeah, Billy Torrance gave it a game try, and you could see that car starting to burn a valve, maybe just at about the halfway mark, the half-track mark at 660 feet. But it did appear that at that point, it was Antron Brown that had the clear advantage and was on his way to victory. Kevin, when you see a race like this, were you ever on the straightaways just all-out drag race with one of your competition?
Well, we have been in that position before, but the thing that is intriguing to me is the calculation of the weather and everything that comes into play here. And I think when I watched the first round and you saw all the wheel spin and the engines and the trouble that everybody had, but I'm used to these finishes. These are close.
Half a car length there. And again, you know, the acceleration rate of a stock car, when you guys are coming out of the pit box as fast as you can to a degree, that's probably the biggest kind of rush of getting set in the seat you get, right?
Well, the biggest thing that I want from here is more of that PJ1 in the box here that I'm able to get out of the pit box harder.
Next pair up will be Doug Foley and Justin Ashley, and it is Doug Foley, the underdog, who has lane choice here as Ashley smoldered the tires. Both cars making their way back up. Bruno, what you know about the racetrack?
Well, I talked with Mike Green a little bit ago, and he asked him about that first round. He said, you know, we thought we were set up safe. We had a handle on what we did yesterday. And sometimes these cars just don't respond. Right now, we've got the hottest track. It's the greasiest track with the less grip. So God bless us all.
So Doug Cook is the crew chief for Doug Foley, and this is not a knock on Doug Foley's car, but for outright power making, they don't necessarily make as much power as Mike Green. Is that going to help on a 126-degree racetrack?
Well, it has to help Doug Foley. I mean, this has always been the great equalizer for this sport, because the cars that can make the bigger power, they're not going to be able to use all that power right now, and that's going to play into the hands of Doug Foley and his team.
Remember, just a week ago, Dan Mercier went to the semifinals as an underdog in Pennsylvania. Oh boy, here we go again. Oh man, Ashley all crossed up, and it's going to be Doug Foley. Doug Foley, a massive upset for the second round in a row. 470 beats a 520, and Justin Ashley had that thing as sideways as you can get a Top Fuel dragster.
Well, for Justin Ashley, so good at car control in the first round, and this really it falls on the tuner's shoulders. It's such a tough challenge for them, Kevin, just trying to harness all of that power, slip the clutch enough. You can see the clear advantage that Justin Ashley had, but this car just starts to break the tires loose. And he was a little over anxious, just getting back in the throttle too soon, pitching that car pretty sideways.
Yeah, and when I typically watch drag racing, you look at these races and you're like, oh man, once I spin the tires, I'm done. But today it seems like with the conditions and everything that is happening, you have to be able to get that car righted and get back in the throttle in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and control the throttle as well. Have you had a chance to get your fingers and dig into the compound of these rear Goodyears? They have to be softer than anything you guys run.
Yeah, and the way that they look when they take off and expand, and just watching all of that, and the contact patch with the tire is just unbelievable.
They are the most used and abused parts on these race cars, and a lot of this stuff gets beat up. Let's go to the top end now with Amanda Busick.
Antron remains undefeated in this countdown and just became the points leader in Top Fuel with Justin Ashley out of it. When you compare both of the runs that you've had here this morning, what's the biggest difference?
Biggest difference is we're just trying to go down the racetrack. Brian, Karate, Mark Oswald, this whole Macro Tools team knows what you have to do. The track is 90 degrees, you're almost a 130-degree track, and we just got to keep going rounds. That's the main thing. We'll give ourselves a chance. We gave ourselves a chance by keeping there. Billy, me and him were neck and neck down the whole race, and we got to keep it up. We're in the semis, but the job's not done. Come talk to him at the last race of the year, and I'll tell you how I feel.
So Antron Brown, the distinction of taking an entire family out of this race today, wiped them right off the face of the earth. And there's Antron looking at Doug Foley. He's saying, wait a second, did you just win? That means I'm leading the points right now by a mere 13. Justin Ashley now back in the number 2 spot. Sean Langdon and Doug Coletta, who have to race, are sitting 3 and 4. So Clay Milliken has seen a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel here because he is now chasing Steve Torrance, who is out of competition. Of course, Brittany Forrest is needing every single round she can get to become closer to the top 10 or the top 4 or 5 cars as we move through this countdown. For Clay Milliken, it was a good first-round effort. In fact, one of the quickest runs, he went 381. For Brittany Forrest, it was a tire-smoking, pedaling effort to get this far.
You know, Kevin, I don't know if you were paying attention to the burnouts, but I like what Clay Milliken does. A very experienced driver. He shortened up the burnout. They want to try to keep some of the temperature off of the tires at the launch. You're going to build up plenty of temperature on this racetrack, but were you able to hear the difference between her burnout and his burnout?
It was definitely a big difference, and I think it's so intriguing right now to understand just that tune and everything that comes with, whether it's the burnout, the tune-up, and everything, just to get down the racetrack.
Every one of these systems on these cars is on a hair trigger, and a couple of degrees here or there can make the difference between victory and an agonizing defeat. Both cars move ahead. Brittany's car is misfiring cylinders, as does Clay's, but his hung in there a little bit longer at 379 and 323. Clay Milliken and Jim Oberhofer are putting the magic back together again with Rick Ware.
Kevin, we're having a conversation off camera about how these tuners can manage the clutch, and that is exactly how you do it. And you notice that raw fuel coming out of the pipe as Clay Milliken approached the finish line. They slip the clutch to the point that the engine continues to rev up because it's not going 1-to-1. And when it continues to rev up, it still has a lot of fuel volume, so much that it's fouling one of the plugs out. But this is exactly how you attack a hot racetrack.
And you can see Milliken's car, I believe, would have shredded a blower belt there at the end of the racetrack, but they will take that round win. Justin Ashley, who saw once again his hopes go up in smoke, is at the top end with Amanda Busick.
Justin Ashley just set up here at the top, and that was one of the craziest runs of his career. What's to learn from it?
Well, I got to go back really and take a look at the video. You know, I gave it a quick pedal, and I think in hindsight I probably should have just eased back onto it. But it's really tough to tell without actually looking at the video. So whatever it is, we'll learn from it as a team. I'll learn from it as a driver. Of course, we would have loved to move on, but I'm happy for Doug. He's been at this a while, and hopefully he keeps it going for him and his team. But can't say enough good things about Mike, Tommy, our entire Skag Power Equipment, Toyota, RCN, Capital Phillips team. They work so hard. So this is, of course, a little bit of a disappointing loss, but you know, you're going to go through ups and downs in racing. These things are going to happen. We have, I think, 4 races left, so we've got to try and take advantage of everyone.
Maintains a very cool persona, but you could tell how much he wanted that round win as we have the 2 Coletta cars here. Doug Coletta and Sean Langdon lined up side by side, and the Coletta Motorsports Group involved with Feeding America, as they have been for a few years now. You can scan this QR code to get involved and help to feed hungry Americans. So far, they have raised 160,000 meals in the last handful of races, and they will be doing this through the fall. Kevin, you've been in a team racing environment. It's a little bit different here, but when you get a teammate sitting in either the other lane or the lower groove of a racetrack, what's the mentality?
Well, it becomes difficult, first off, and just trying to make sure that everything is as fair as possible, because you want the best drivers and the best crew guys to do what they do best, and that's work on those cars. So you got to give everybody a fair shake.
They leave in the 3000s. Langdon smokes the tires, and Coletta's motor, well, in ill health, makes it to the finish line first. 3:9:05 at 3:17. The championship light for Doug Coletta that was down to a flicker is starting to get a little brighter.
Yeah, for Sean Langdon, he had the quickest elapsed time of that first round. And again, as this track temperature has increased close to 20 degrees, the target has to change. And Sean, in the near lane, like so many other cars, just got the tires loose way too early in the run at about 150 feet off the starting line.
Clay Milliken is the all-star of this round. That 379 that he and Jim Oberhofer put up on the board is intimidating to everybody else. Kevin Harvick, thank you so much for hanging with us and bringing the family out to ZMAX this weekend.
Thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
And you can tune in Happy Hour with Kevin Harvick. It is the best NASCAR podcast you could possibly listen to or tune into. The check will be in the mail, I understand. It's going to be Foley Milliken on one side and Brown and Coletta on the other. And you can catch again Happy Hour with Kevin Harvick weekly. Keep you up on all the world of NASCAR action. Ron Capps is warming the nap. World, America's recreation dealer, and by Pep Boys. Pep Boys Auto Service and Tires. Now let's get a look at our starting lineup for round 2 of Nitro Funny Car. Bob Taska III and John Smith roll to a stop after their respective burnouts. Our pairings are as follows. Jack Beckman and Dan Wilkerson. Wilkerson, the whole shot artist in the first round, and Jack Beckman, who has one of the most consistently quick cars on the property. Austin Brock and Ron Capps. Capps will be the next in line to try to stop that freight train and knock it off the tracks. Then Matt Hagan will be unopposed in the second round, allowing that team to experiment and push the boundaries of performance. Finally, Bob Taska III and John Smith. Smith is trying to play the role in Nitro Funny Car that Doug Foley is now playing in Top Fuel.
Well, that's why John Smith has a chance right now, because Doug Foley is in the semifinals in Top Fuel, and we're looking at the hottest temperature, track temperature, that we've seen all weekend. So while he did see some temperature over qualifying, they haven't run in these conditions. So I think for Taska, hey, this is an important round. They have to keep track with Austin Brock. Yes. And now Hagen's in the mix. Capps is there, but I think it's going to come down to the discipline that the tuner has to try to slip the clutch and just pick a different target. Maybe something in the high 90s may get you to the semifinals in Funny Car.
Paul Smith, father of John and the crew chief, steps away. It's a race, and it's going to be Bob Taska pulling away in the back half of the drag strip. Ford 003 at 314 miles an hour. The PPG Ford is headed to the semis.
That's all about what you do in the bell housing, not just in the bell housing, but with the control module that is setting off the chain of events for the clutch. It's time, it's how, at the rate that you do apply the clutch, all the right adjustments from Todd Okahara, Aaron Brooks, the two tuners for Bob Taska, and a very respectable run for Paul Smith. Again, the tuner for this John Smith machine, just so much experience and so savvy when it comes down to getting a car down a marginal racetrack.
Let's go to the top end. Clay Milliken is going to be racing a guy he has more history with than anybody else on the property, Doug Foley.
Clay, you told Tony Pedregon on your radio earlier today that it was going to be a driver and tuner kind of day. How true have those words been?
Well, I tell you what, I like my tuners right now. Jimmo and Nikki are making it easy for me. I haven't had to really do anything. But, man, how about another new sponsor, and we're going to the semis, Mighty Firebreaker, and, of course, always. I love my folks at Parts Plus Edelbrock Summit. Woo, it's hot, people. This makes me think of Richmond. Hot!
Or a summer in Drummond's, Tennessee, perhaps, as Jack Beckman and Dan Wilkerson move their way to the starting line. Let's go down to Bruno Massel.
Talking with Jack Beckman before this round as he was checking out the tree, the way the sun was hitting it. I asked him, how does he feel about his driving right now in this Big Funny Car? He said, honestly, it doesn't even matter. Someone from the stands can come out and drive this thing. He said, but the car is running so good. I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, because when it's this good, you don't want to be the weak link, so it almost puts more pressure on you.
Dan Wilkerson began this season not knowing he would ever race against Jack Beckman, and he finds himself in what could be a sticky predicament here. The big thing for Wilkerson is going to be not being overly aggressive and not laying back too hard. That 17 light scared him a little bit, but he still needs to be aggressive.
Well, Clay Milliken said something very important. They haven't encountered conditions this hot, so a lot of these tuners are referring back to when they saw 130-degree plus temperatures on the racetrack in Richmond.
What a race all the way to the stripe. It is going to be a 393.7 at 323 miles an hour for Jack Beckman. And once again, snap.
Having more in the last 100 feet in this race than even at the starting line. And how do you adjust for that down track?
Well, you're anticipating it. You know it's coming. It was smooth going. Guess what?
About 850 feet. Tires get loose, motor jumps up, the car starts to really dance around. As a driver, you just want to keep it in the center of the groove to give your team the best chance. But that was a great race. You know, we knew we had to go A to B to beat him.
That has been the key as the body comes up for Ron Capps, the Napa chassis car. A bit of a fascinating moment here as he is racing the Cornwall Quality Tools Camaro.
Scenario for Ron Capps, and he had a good car a week ago. It was that foul start that took him out of competition in the first round. However, he was on the same side of the ladder as Austin Prock. They would have met up in the semifinals, so I'm sure that Ron Capps, as he did a week ago, has a good car, has a car that can compete with Austin Prock right now.
And Ron Capps smokes the tires. Prock has multiple holes out as his car was spinning the tires down track. Goes 4.029 at 292. And again, it's not a beauty contest. It is an acceleration contest, and Prock just won it.
No, you can see the puzzled look from Dean Antonelli there. You know, I'm sure he had that car armed up. It's just so hard to race these guys. You cannot pull back. You have to be aggressive, but they were too aggressive. As we get another look at this race, the Napa car looks like about 100 feet. It's just too much wheel speed, and it doesn't recover. And this is a beatable run for Austin Prock. He is not going to have lane choice. He's about 9/100ths of a second slower than his teammate that he's going to match up against. So while they are strong and they are consistent, the driver is always on time, at least on the starting line.
Let's
They're
listen.
going to have their hands full.
Sorry, we're going to go on board with Capps. Let's listen.
Well, the high RPMs really tell the story early in the run for Ron Capps.
And so for Capps, the Dorman Napa colors will be retired this afternoon to head on to St. Louis, more specifically Madison, Illinois, and Worldwide Technology Raceway next weekend. Matt Hagan has a free pass to the semifinals. Let's see how hard they push in the JHG Dodge. Jason Johnson himself. Nice piece of work here by Hagan. That car was really trying to move him around early. Goes to 397 at 318 miles an hour. Second quick of the round. He will have lane choice over Bob Tasker III in the semifinals. Let's take a look now at the ladder after the second round, setting up our semifinals. Lane choice, of course, will go to Matt Hagan against Bob Tasker III. And Jack Beckman will have lane choice over Austin Prock, who is his prime competition right now. When we come back, it will be time for the Pro Stock cars and motorcycles to take to the racetrack. Round 2 action presenting its own challenges for the gasoline burners.
It's Fox College
for Pro Stock Championship. You can hit that flow code to get more involved. As you look at these numbers, Dallas Glenn's still the odds-on favorite, but man, Aaron Stanfield is right there in his back pocket.
You know, I'm taking these all day long. I'm not opposed to winning even more money betting on Greg Anderson. This guy's not out of the picture yet.
Certainly is not. As we now go to the second round of Pro Stock Eliminator. Anders Tucker, Glenn Hartford, Anderson Quadra, Stanfield. And Coughlin. And a pair of red Elite Motorsports entries. That is Jerry Tucker, who is driving the Mile High Outlaw Light Beer car in the Johnson's Horsepower Garage. Melling Performance red Camaro of Eric Enders. A little looser, 101 to 60 feet. Enders goes a 662 at 208 miles an hour and advances to the semifinals. And so now it is Jed Coughlin and Aaron Stanfield. For Coughlin, it could be a moment of redemption after the first round exit last week. For Stanfield, he just needs to keep the sword swinging until there are no heads left to chop off here today. And he has a big one here in the other lane. This is a challenge supreme for Stanfield. My goodness. Jed got up on the two-step, and there was no two-step. We'll explain this in a moment. Aaron Stanfield goes 662.5 at 206. Tony, you know this as well. Maybe our fans do or they don't. These clutches have a centrifugal component to them, so when the engine over-revs at the starting line, it simply engages the clutch, and the driver can't stop it.
It sure is a convenient time for it to happen as Aaron Stanfield is leading the points, and then, of course, they want to push him. They're team cars, but who knows? Anything can happen, I suppose.
Matt Hartford, the Total Seal Piston Rings, Gettrex Camaro. Dallas Glenn, Rad Torque Systems, DPFPartsDirect.com Camaro. They both run KB Titan horsepower. Hartford kind of operates as an island. They're in and up to himself. He gets the engine from those guys, but handles all the tuning. Chassis set up with his crew chief, Eddie Granacci. Matt Hartford stood in there toe-to-toe with Dallas Glenn as they charge to the stripe. Glenn goes 6.609 at 206 miles an hour, outpacing the 6.64.4 of Matt Hartford. Glenn's car more aggressive by 700s to 60 feet, and then it got even further from there.
Two-step working just fine on both of these cars, and for Matt Hartford, he gave it a game effort. He is in his older car, what he calls an old car, that had about 7 or 8 years of competition on it. But if he's more comfortable, if it gives him better reaction times, more power to him.
And one last trip on that Total Seal on board this afternoon. Greg Anderson, Summit on board. Christian Quadra, two-step check, check. And low ET check. Yes, indeed. 6.603.207. Low ET of the round. Both Dallas Glenn and Anderson ran 660. The two other cars ran 662. So there's going to be some fireworks here in the semifinal round. We get a look now at our Lucas Oil competition ladder, and we will see the 4 cars remaining on opposite sides of the fence as far as teammates go, and opposite sides of the ladder. Enders Glenn, Anderson Stanfield. Let's go to Amanda.
Eric Enders looking to capitalize on the #1 qualifier in search of her 50th career Wally. And you talked about wanting to hold yourself accountable here today. What do you make of your performance so far?
Well, all that matters right now is we're turning wind lights on. We're not extremely used to being out first behind the funny cars, so we had her toned down quite a bit there. That's why our 60-foot was so slow, and I had my hands full on that run. She was moving around down low. I had to get her back in the groove and just spinning its ass off up top. So we do what we can with what we have, and we got a big round next round, and we just got to keep moving the marker.
That is a fact. You just have to keep pushing the rock up the hill, see if you can get it over the top by the time we get to Pomona. Hector Rana Jr. and the rest of the bike squad will be up when we return.
What's up?
Who are you?
I'm your inner child. Get in.
That is the engine of Bob Tasker III's funny car heading off to the side. The short block, if you will, with the magnetos installed. They're going to swing a new one of those right back into the chassis. This week's Suzuki Science of Speed brings us Amanda Busick and Andrew Hines.
Herrera had a perfect light at the Indy Finals when he raised that Wally at the U.S. Nationals, but then he was 002 red at Reading. How do you compensate for a driver that's that capable?
Well, luckily Gage is really consistent, so we can move the motorcycle around him and kind of find the sweet spot for reaction time. But right now it's kind of at the mercy of how we're having to tune the bike for the extra weight. We're having to hit the clutch harder, get the tire moving earlier in the run, and that's a component to move the motorcycle and reaction time faster. So, and fortunately in that run when it was 2,000 red, I raised the wheelie bar a 1/4 of an inch. That just allowed it to pull the front tire out of the beam a little bit faster. And right now we're battling some old age parts in his clutch, so we really need to get some fresher parts in there, because when he's on the rev limiter on the starting line, it's starting to creep. That's what we call the bike rolling forward while he still has the clutch in. So we're going to get some fresher plates in there and get everything fixed up, and we'll learn from it. It's hindsight, and we'll figure it out.
The minutia of drag racing, the thousandths of inches, are the things that make the difference between winners, champions, and losers, as we see the 8 remaining motorcycles here for the second round of Pro Stock Bike. Matt and Angie Smith going to be one of those pairings that we watch here in this second round. Gianna Evaristo, top of your screen. Hector Rana Jr., the Gettrex Buell, bottom of your screen. And Arana's bike just shuts itself off. Last week's winner is toast. Gianna Evaristo locked down on top of the Matt Smith Racing Scrappers V. Gonna line up next to the Revzilla. Hall now gonna line up next to the Revzilla. Motul, Suzuki Hayabusa of Gage Herrera.
Well, again, like the Nitro Funny cars and Top Fuel cars, these tuners are having to make the adjustments for the increase in track temperature. For Gage Herrera, it's only an adjustment of 0.02 of a second slower than round 1.
687.4, 196. John Hall got aggressive on the starting line and turned on the red light. We're all been looking forward to this one. Richard Gadsden and Chase Van Zandt, they have found each other again in competition. The two young, phenomenal talents on their screaming Suzukis, with Van Zandt being 002 green, and Gadsden still outruns them. 688.7, 197, a near mirror image run to his teammate Gage Herrera. And now is Matt and Angie Smith blowing a kiss to each other. He blew one to her and she received it. We go split screen here to look
at the onboard cameras of Matt and Angie Smith. Well, I guess she did give him a kiss back. A 1:28 reaction time.
Yeah, happy birthday. Happy birthday, husband. I'm going to give you my slowest reaction time of the year and a very convenient time in the second round.
G. Willikers, 686 beats a 689 by a train length. Smith and Evaristo one side, Herrera Gadsden on the other, and that will be that. Now let's talk to Gage.
Well, the way that the ladder lines up, no matter what, there will be a Matt Smith Racing and a Vance & Hines bike in the final. Gage is hoping to be that one. You will have to go through your teammate. Knowing what you know about Richard, what is your advantage?
I don't know if I have an advantage. You know, we're both really good on the tree. We both got very consistent motorcycles. I won at 87, he won at 88. So it's anyone's game. You know, I feel like we got probably the strongest team out here as riders, and not only that, you know, all the guys back at Vance & Hines, Revzilla, Motul, you know, Suzuki, all of them. I mean, they put all their support and effort into us to give us the best machinery, and now we gotta go out there and do our job, and I'm gonna try to go for his throat.
He will need to. Richard Gadsden has been going for everybody else's. Now we have our class description for Pro Mod. The NHRA's ultimate door slammer category, 5-second, 250-mile-an-hour hot rods, blowers, nitrous, centrifugal superchargers, screw blowers, you name it, we got it. Turbochargers are legal in the rules, but we don't have any turbocharged combinations here this weekend. The beginning ladder of the weekend. Travis Harvey, the big name on the right-hand side, to race against Ricky Smith. Harvey, the famed Carolina Kid, is a grudge racer, door slammer racer par excellence, and it's great to have him here in the world of NHRA Congruity HR Pro Modified. Jordan Lasik, part of the Bahrain 1 team, wearing the Bayon sponsorship on the doors, and this is Ken Curtuccio, the winner of the U.S. Nationals. Curtuccio, as deep as he has ever been in a championship hunt at this level in his life, is going to be knocked out in the first round. 575 beats a 580. Curtuccio simply outrun.
Yeah, and for Ken, he made up some of the difference on the starting line, but not quite enough to hold off Jordan.
Dmitry Samarukov and the Mississippi Missile himself, Jason Scruggs, lining up in the first round. Both cars creeping in. The 5 and 12 qualifiers, and Samarukov got fourth thou on him. Both cars all over the drag strip, but Samarukov able to drive his car down that left lane, and Dmitry Samarukov knocks off Jason Scruggs, who had his hands full early on.
You can appreciate the diversity in this class, all the different forms that you can make power, but these drivers are spot on off the starting line.
Now this is a battle. Travis Harvey, as mentioned, this guy with ice water in his veins. Just 2 weeks ago, he was at a grudge race driving for the Swanstrom family, won $100,000. And on the opposite side of the drag strip is Ricky Smith from King, North Carolina. One of the greatest door slammer competitors ever. Gets loss of traction about 60 feet in, but look at Harvey, 14 green.
I don't know where Travis came from, but he came with some heat on the starting line against the old pro, Ricky Smith.
578 for Harvey. He is loving life right now. Stevie Fast Jackson, the Killing Time Racing team. Motion Raceworks down the doors of the Shadow 3.0. And Jose Gonzalez. Stage in the Q80 Racing Scott Tidwell car. He breaks traction, tries to give chase, and Stevie Fast just annihilated an engine up there. 597 at 206 miles an hour. He saw that smoke begin to trail before he got to the finish line. That might be trouble. Kevin Rivenbark, the Culp Lumber Company sponsorship. And this is a great story. Mike Janis, wearing the Russian Drag Racing community sponsorship through Dmitry Samarukov, is driving a Pro Modified car that was quite literally provided to him by Dean Harvey. Kevin Rivenbark and the Culp Lumber Machine can't get there first. Mike Janis, for the first time in 4 years, back in NHRA competition. Tony, this is a car that was built brand new, and Dean Harvey never completed it, and he called Mike Janis and gave it to him.
I didn't realize it was that close of a race. I was admiring that fastback Ford design.
And here is Billy Banica of Mississippi, the S&B trucking sponsored Hugger Orange Camaro, and Mike Castellano, the defending world champion. Alan Abbey Performance colors on his Camaro. Castellano, 51 light and a win light in this first round. 579 beats a 582. Castellano was a dark horse candidate when we got to the final race of the year last year, and he's trying to move himself back into that position here. Chip King and Justin Bond. Again, Bond, part of the Bahrain 1 team with Bapco Energies on the door. And Chip King, the DreamWorks Motorsports Charger. King got loose up by the center line, and Justin Bond said, see you later. 577, 246.
Yeah, it looked like Chip Keen had the wheels up in the air, made it very hard to drive. However, he did start to fall behind at that stage.
Chris Thorne, the Jerry Bickle built Camaro tuned by Jamie Miller and Mason Wright. Motion Raceworks. Pro Flow Pumping Solutions, Justin Elks the crew chief. Thorne, a prior champion, wants it back, and he wants it back badly at 24 light. Parachutes out. Thorne defeats Wright in round 1, 584. Beats a 619, and the Red Hat Mafia moves on to round number 2. Jackson Thorne, Lasik Samaruka, Bond Castellana, Harvey, and Janice. This week's That's a Repair for Pep Boys. Well, it involves Justin Bond. Bond launched off the starting line. And this is very late in the season.
It was just a matter of how good I could get and how far.
Top speeds of the weekend. We look now at Top Fuel qualifying session 1. Billy Torrance and Brittany Forrest went to the finish line under power, but Brittany Forrest did it at 335.73 miles an hour. The top speed of the meet so far in Top Fuel for the weekend. You can see Matt Hagan, Eric Enders, and Matt Smith leading their respective categories. And all of those came, of course, through qualifying. This day of high heat pedaling and craziness. On race day, the U.S. Air Force aim high top speeds of the weekend as we look at our Top Fuel ladder. Antron Brown and Doug Coletta are on the drag strip right now. Clay Millican and Doug Foley will be the second pair of this semifinal round of competition. A 41-23 career record Antron Brown has over, or 41-32 over Doug Coletta. Which car stronger coming into this matchup?
But right now, Antron Brown is checking out all the boxes. He's been better in first round. He's been better in the second round. He wasn't the better qualified car. That goes to Doug Coletta. But right now, so much at stake for both these teams.
For Doug Coletta, wants to go back-to-back here at Charlotte. They both leave. Antron left first. Coletta's going to miss firing cylinder. Antron Brown is going to the final round again. 387.3, 319.07 miles an hour. Coletta's car on 7 cylinders just wasn't fast enough.
It would have definitely been closer, but it was a starting line advantage by Antron Brown. It was a couple of hundredths of a second, and that really made the biggest difference in this matchup. As the cars leave the starting line, you can see just that starting line advantage. So now Doug Coletta is having to play catch up. He's 0.003 of a second quicker at 330 feet, but you can see the raw fuel just start to pour out of that Coletta machine just before the 8th mile, and that made the biggest difference.
Career final round 114 for Antron Brown. So we see Antron making the corner there at the top end. It's Doug Foley and Clay Millican. The mighty firebreaker, fire retardant car of Clay Millican. We spoke to Clay in the lanes just moments ago. Hey Clay, it's your old pal Loans up in the booth. How are you?
I tell you what, other than I'm hot and sweating, I am having a great day so far.
Well, this is like old home week. You got to race your boy Doug Foley. You guys have seen a lot of each other over the years.
We certainly have. We have battled it out for a championship in the past, and we're battling it out right now to go to a final round. I'm looking forward to it.
Let me hit you up with one last question. 381, 379. It's looking like the best hot weather car on the property right now. Does it feel like it?
Shimo and Nikki are on it right now. I just need to go up here and continue doing what I've been doing, and I like our chances. We just got to rinse and repeat.
Good luck, man. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Y'all are awesome.
So now we go to the starting line with Doug Foley, the Protex United Garage Door Alloy Employer Services car. Foley trying to make his first final since Gainesville of 22. Millican's car blew up in the starting line. Foley smokes the tires and grenades his engine, and Doug Foley on fire will coast across the finish line. He is going to the final, running 5:31.4 to take on Antron Brown. This is an amazing, I don't even know what to say.
Well, a smart driver, he's pulling over. He knows that something has happened behind him. He could probably feel the explosion. He could probably hear it, but here's the problem. It was a backfire by the Clay Millican car right off the starting line. You can see the parachutes come out. He is done. He is out of power. Doug Foley has no idea where he is at. You can see him lighting the tires up. He's reluctant to get out of the throttle because he can set his sights on that finish line. But for Doug Foley, you have to look at it this way. You can see those rear tires start to shake loose, and he is just staying on the throttle, just over-revving this car. But the way you got to look at it is you can win and blow the motor up. You can lose and blow up just as well.
Now our funny car ladder, Matt Hagan will take on Bob Tasker III, and it will be Austin Prock and Jack Beckman. On the racetrack right now, Bob Tasker III and Hagan. Hagan seeking to reach his 97th career final, last one coming at Brainerd. Bob Tasker, career final 35, last one came at Sonoma.
Both these teams have to realize that these are the rounds that you are going to have to win if you want to compete for a championship going into the last race of the year. Of course, Matt Hagan coming into this matchup with a 0.03 of a second performance advantage from the previous round.
You can see the wrap being torched off the side of the carbon fiber body by the gazillion-degree exhaust header heat on Hagan's car. The PPG colors for Bob Tasker III this weekend as they lock in. Both green, both very tight. A great side-by-side matchup, a huge funnel of smoke, and it's Matt Hagan. 4.002 beats a 4.009. And for Bob Tasker III, that thing went off like a Roman candle at the top end.
Wow, what a close race. Both drivers off the starting line, nearly identical. And it was Hagan, just by the slightest amount at 300 feet, extended that lead by 100th of a second at 660 feet. And you can see that PPG machine, it appears that they used a motor up by the time they got to the finish line, but these cars are leaning on them pretty hard. They're making power, they're slipping the clutch, a lot of stress on these motors, and by that much, this victory, this round, is going to go to Matt Hagan.
What a battle, 11 thousandths of a second. We're going to see again the smoke just come funneling out of Tasker's car as it gets down to the finish line, and it's just melted pistons.
It's pumping. It looks like a freight train at that stage.
Doug Foley has made the final round of Top Fuel for the first time since 22 of Gainesville. Let's talk to him.
And Brian, you can see the carnage of what was that explosion behind us in this interview with Doug Foley. And Doug, into your final, will you guys make it?
Oh, we'll make it. I'm not, impressive for, a part-time team that's out here and competing at this level. And, for us, it's just, I give all the glory to God. It's the only reason I'm here. And, if anybody wants a blocker for the rest of the year, I'm available.
Well, he's hanging his shingle, and actually have to hang a new blower and, well, a new everything on. Things. This week's peak, did you know? Semi-final, and Prock gets it done. 396 beats a 401 at 320 miles an hour for Beckman. Prock was 61 on the tree.
Well, for the second weekend in a row, it was Beckman, the team, just laying up too much when it is not needed, when you're going up against the best car, or at least the best car this year. They just pulled back too much power out of it. Second off the starting line, Beckman. You have to do a lot of things to beat Austin Prock, and you can see the difference off the starting line, the jump that Austin Prock gets, and just every step of the way, they just laid up too much.
So Austin Prock closes this one by 75 thousandths of a second, and the rampage of success that Austin Prock has been inflicting upon the category will continue, and Matt Hagan will be the last man to stand in his way against a 3-race run. Doug Foley's car is already coming apart. Halfway already did come apart, but the rest of it is being disassembled. We'll be right back.
Know what's happening in college football right now? Players switching teams switching conferences. It changes every second. But Big Noon, it's on the same time and same channel on every TV in the country. College football is complicated, but Big Noon, hey, Hunt fan.
Hey guys, how we feeling? You ready? Hey, Adams Elementary. Go Rams. I think he needs one too. What do you think?
This is not just flu protection.
You guys ready to fight some crime?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you go get him, all right?
This is a neighbor looking out for you. Schedule flu and COVID-19 vaccines for you and your family today. Walgreens.
Tonight, in your spacious La Quinta suite, your eyes could use a break after a long day of seeing, things. But hey, free waffles always make you forget. Tonight, La Quinta. Tomorrow, you shine.
The first time you try Bounce, it hits you. Your laundry feels way fresher and less wrinkled. You start to wonder, if I put a sheet of Bounce on my boss, will it make his wrinkles smoother? Bounce can't do it all. But for better laundry, put a sheet on it with Bounce.
There is nothing like a Wendy's Frosty. It's cool. It's creamy. It's only $1 right now. Wait, what? The one and only Frosty is $1? Gotta be Wendy's.
I am an American soldier. I'm a warrior and a member of a team. I will never accept defeat.
I am an American soldier.
Tubi is proud to be free for all small business owners, but it's also free for thugs and cronies who shake down small businesses, because Tubi is free for everyone.
Red Bull gives you wings.
At Burger King, we flame grill our burgers. Why? Because that's how it should be done. Hot, juicy, smoky, flame grilled, and made your way. Come experience the flame grilled difference with 2 Whopper Juniors for just $5.
Hi, this is Jamor, and a little thing that I love about the Chick-fil-A Spicy Honey Pepper Pimento Chicken Sandwich is that extra oomph. You're going to get that sweetness of the honey, and then you're going to get the heat from the spicy filet. The pairing is perfect.
Real customer paid for their testimonial.
Grandpa and I used to work on this together, and when I'm gone, I want you to have it.
Doesn't count. What you need is a will, something you can sign and make official. Start your will at trustandwill.com and make.
That was a big win. How much does a championship ride on one like that?
That's make or break right there. That's a massive round for us. Be able to turn the corner a little bit. But JHG, he's in the house. I know he's smiling down there. Yeah, baby, good. Big round, big round.
Matt's got a little swagger back in his step right now. That's a good thing to see. That is a guy who's fired up. It is Smith Evaristo one side, Herrera Gadsden on the other. Gage Herrera and Richard Gadsden, the 2 Revzilla, Motul, Vance and Hines teammates on their Hayabusas. They stage. They lead. Gage is 005, and his bike refuses to shift. Richard Gadsden's going to another final round. What a great lead for Gage Herrera. 005, 200ths of a second in the bank. Was outperforming Richard early in the run. Matt Smith, Gianna Evaristo, the 2 Matt Smith Racing teammates. The Denso bike for Matt, and of course the Scrappers colors for Gianna. Gianna Evaristo, 0:17 reaction time, but Matt Smith is just driving away at half track. A 70 light. He runs 690, and her bike slows down well over 1/10 of a second off its previous 2 rounds. Matt's with Amanda.
Matt Smith upset that Richard Gadsden ran lower than him, meaning he'll have lane choice. Why does it matter so much here?
Well, I haven't been good in the right lane, both qualifying passes, so I guess we got to figure that lane out now and go up there and see what we can do. But we've been the best in the left lane, but we'll give it our best shot and try to beat him and turn that win light on.
Now let's talk. The Top Fuel motorcycle category has been contested within the NHRA for the first time in many years. A multi-race series this season saw Larry the Spider-Man McBride wrestling an incredibly successful and overpowered bike to a championship this season. Our Fendt record-setting performance goes to this legend. Spider-Man leathers and helmet, and Amanda Busick handed him his championship trophy.
Ned Walliser from the NHRA just presented the medal to Larry Spider-Man McBride up here at the top, and as celebrations get underway. And Larry, I've watched you this weekend come in and out of the pits with that smile on your face, just excited about all the fans here to root you on in this success. You have had a career that has spanned decades. How much of that is represented in this trophy?
Every bit of it. I tell you, it's just such an honor to be here and standing up here on the stage with you. It's just an honor to be up here. And, you know, fortunately, I get presented this stuff, but my crew's the one that deserves it. So, you know, my wife, my kids, my crew, you know, they all put up with me to do it and for me to live my dream. And to be able to come live my dream with all these nice fans and to live it with you and meet all the great people I have. It's hard to put it all in words, to be honest with you. It's a little emotional, but, you know, it's hard to put in words. I just love the NHRA and, you know, Ned Wallister for what he's done and what he stood behind us and helped us do in this class. And we're steady building this deal. We're going to be back next year with NHRA, so we're coming back, fans, so we'll be here.
Larry, let them see that trophy. There you go, Spider-Man, the inaugural winner here in the Pingle Top Fuel Motorcycle Championship.
A man of great passion, dignity, and certainly of high performance. Larry, the Spider-Man McBride, is an NHRA champion. We'll be back with more from the pits in Charlotte after this.
Time. It's the only thing that matters on this track. And it's the only thing that matters in this field. If you're not making the most of every second out here, consider yourself second place. That's why I run Fendt, with a full lineup of industry-leading machines that maximize my efficiency.
Look at Austin Prock, and he has continued to do what he has done so many times this year, consistency and quickness.
Not as dominant as he has been in the past couple of races, however, great execution coming from the number 2 qualifying position, but very strong, very consistent on a hot racetrack.
We go to the second round after defeating Alexis DeJoria. It was Ron Capps' turn to try to jump into the maelstrom known as Austin Prock, and he got thrown out like everybody else.
So spin the tires at about 600 to 700 feet. However, they still have plenty of momentum, and you notice he is still first off the line most of the time.
And then it was the semifinal round where his own teammate Jack Beckman lined up next to him, and just like in Maple Grove, Pennsylvania, he gave him all he could handle, but Austin Prock came out on the right side of it.
Yeah, almost a carbon copy of that final round just 1 week ago.
Speaking of Austin Prock, Bruno Massel's with him right now.
Austin Prock getting ready to go into another final round, a chance to go back-to-back to start off the playoffs. You know, Austin, for you guys, it's been a hot racetrack. You guys are tiptoeing down a fine line. Your brother said at one point the car was breaking the tires loose. What is it going to take for you guys to tiptoe that one more time and beat Matt Hagan in the final?
Probably going to have to run better than we did that last round. That 96 in the semifinals was pretty stout. They made some wholesale changes on this Cornwell Tua Chevrolet Camaro SS, and everything aligned finally. We've been struggling all weekend, and I'm glad this hot rod's back. I think we can get it done, but it's going to be tough. Hagan, he's been hot this weekend as well.
He is serious, he is locked down, and now we go to our Congruity HR Pro Modified Series presented by Learn EV Plus and powered by Culp Lumber this weekend. It is Chris Thorne and Dmitry Samarukov on the drag strip. The Pro Charger equipped Bahrain 1 Racing Chevrolet Camaro. Jerry Bickle built chassis and Dmitry Samarukov rolling forward here. The supercharger for Samarukov's car growing out of the hood as they leave. Thorne's got about 200s advantage here, but Samarukov is cruising, and it is Dmitry Samarukov by 0.02 of a second, 8 inches at 245 miles an hour. The team didn't know if they won yet. Somebody had Larry Morgan had to tell them.
That's how close it was. They may have to go to that snap-on car and say, hey, why'd you take that light down?
Romont fans around the country rejoiced when they heard Travis Harvey was showing up to